Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Raisa Lopez from Channel Sales and Marketing at IIG. We are very excited to have you with us today as we present AcuWorkOrder, our light manufacturing solution for Acumatica. AcuWorkOrder offers so much functionality to take care of many manufacturing companies' needs and at a fraction of the cost, offering substantial savings. AcuWorkOrder is sold directly by IIG, so please reach out to me for any pricing information. Okay, before we get started, just wanted to give you a little intro about IIG in case you haven't worked together before. We have been in the ERP space operating for over 30 years now. We have successfully developed 17 enhancements for Acumatica, 2 of which were acquired by Acumatica. That was our Gmail integration and Acumatica's POS. We are partnered with over 100 Acumatica VARs worldwide, and we offer our partners support with marketing materials, discoveries, demos. We also offer lesson plans and CRM activities to manage the implementation. We have over 1,000 customers that we support worldwide, and that's with our ISV solutions as well as with custom programming, which we offer very competitive rates, and we take on projects big and small. And we are a Gold Acumatica partner. I'd like to invite you to check out our website where you can find some of our other popular enhancements for Acumatica, which are all developed within Acumatica. You can find data sheets and overview recordings as well. And while you're on our website, make sure to check out our reviews from customers and partners. And I also want to invite you to type your questions in at any time. There, you can send it through chat or direct, and we'll address them at the end of the call. So with that being said, I will pass you over to Alec, our Chief Solutions Architect, and he will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Raisa. So what I'm going to do is first go over a quick PowerPoint presentation, and after that I'll start showing you the actual program, process some transactions in the system. So what AcuWorkOrder does, it gives you the ability to process manufacturing work order transactions in the Acumatica's distribution edition. So you do not need to buy the manufacturing edition. As what AcuWorkOrder does, it gives you the ability to track quantity on work order, what's getting produced and required for work order, the components. We have a nice scheduling board. It will show you that it will show you your machine centers, what's scheduled for each machine center, and you can create multiple views, daily, hourly. And we show you also for your tech employees that work in the shop, you can schedule those as well. We also have a shop floor dashboard, which would show you your capacity for the coming days, as well as your past activity for the last 12 months and so forth. We have a nice screen that for any item would show you the components for it and whether you need to manufacture a sub-assembly or purchased an item for that kit specification record. We'll let you auto schedule the work orders if you need to from the order. Sales order entries. Many other functionality here. From we let you generate work order from the sales order module, optional work orders, whether you're selling a chair and the legs need to be powder coated or painted. We let you do repair work orders, and repair work order could be billed to the customer, the labor and parts, or the manufacturer, or your no part warranty. We let you do a partial or full disassembly if you're harvesting some parts from an equipment for others. We'll show you all the for a given equipment, all the expenses you've incurred as part of the equipment ROI, and set up scheduled service. So even if you have your own plant and you want to see the expenses for a machine or the scheduled services, you'll see those QC functions, very powerful QC functions. You basically can set up QC functions for an operation step in the manufacturing process, as well as a component that is issued to the work order or the finished good that is manufactured. Scanning is available if you're scanning the component set up for a given item or the labor start and end time. Outside processing, very powerful, will let you generate a sales order to ship the product out to a vendor that you've set up as part of routing, create the PO to pay the vendor and bring the product back. VIP posting, if you have steps that it takes some times to do and you want to see VIP information in the GL, we'll do that. Mobile app, if you want to let folks in the field do some labor tracking or change the status of the manufacturing transaction. Projects, if you create a work order for a project, you can post that to a project as a cost phantom bill, overhead allocation, as well as process manufacturing. You can set up a bill if you're building lasagna and you want the components to be presented the batch size or a purple paint color, and you could put the finished product, the ingredients, the lasagna, 12-ounce bottles, 20-ounce bottles, and so forth, and we'll do some part tracing. So this is the dashboard. So in here, you see the activity for the next so many days by work center. So each one of these lines represent the work center or the past so many months. We'll show you the work orders that are available and what items you're manufacturing. This is our MRP screen. So in any item you put in here and click on recalculate, we'll go to all the bill of material levels for that item and tell you if you need to buy a component 3 levels deep or you need to manufacture sub-assembly. Notice right from here, depending on the replenishment method, you could generate a work order, transfer sales order, or generate a PO. And this is the scheduling board. So each one of these cells represent a step in the manufacturing color. The colors are manufacturing process. The colors are tied to the status of that manufacturing, whether it's released, whether it's on the shop floor, whether it's pending for some parts and all of that. And this is the same thing for employees. Now, these are both drag and drop. So you can, if Layla can now work on something and Joseph needs to do it, just drag and drop that to the next cell. So in our world, we have work order types, machine codes, and statuses for work order transactions, which are user defined. You create them and you tell the software what the behavior is as far as like a work order type is. You're doing a disassembly, you're doing a production, you're doing a repair, and the programs function differently depending on the type. Here we see the kit specification record. So we use the Acumatica's kit specifications for our bill of material. So we add to it things like routing, revision, yield percent for the manufactured item, scrap percent for the components. We let you link components to a group ID code and link the group ID code to the routing step. So you can set up a situation where everything is issued in the very first step in the manufacturing process or the very last step or throughout the manufacturing process. As I mentioned, yield and scrap are used as part of our MRP screen to know what you need of a component, so many levels up. You have options, so depending on the option, an additional routing step could kick in, or additional components and labor could be loaded. One of the other things that we do, we let you enter routing, and routing could just be, depending on how you want to set up your system, routing could be few and it could be entered here at the header level, or you can have a routing steps loaded in the tab here, which if they're specific to this item. Here you're seeing kit specification with some options here, for each option, the additional routing step or the components that need to be set up. We on this screen, which is accessed from kit specification, we show you the manufacturing tree. So if that desk has this level, one level components, and that component has this level, you could specify those. You could see that. We let you specify this item, for example, desk 2500, to be set up as a phantom, and when you're entering the order, you could tell the work order entry program where you have that DSK 2510 item be loaded as a stocked DSK 2510, or you want to load the components into a manufacturing transaction and manufacture those. So this is our routing. So you see seeing it routing for the candy cane collection Christmas decoration. Basically, the first step we're saying go pull the product, assemble the base and the frame, and then install the line and the power source and install the ornament, do the packaging. And if for each one of these steps you tell it the required hours per operation, or fixed time, or operations per hour, and based on that we know how to do the basically scheduling of it. We've told them that any item, which items need to be loaded in which step. So in any component in the bill of material that is grouped as peak products would be loaded in the first step, and the pool product, and so forth and so on. We also, as I mentioned, we let you do repair transactions. And so from sales order, we let you create repair transactions. I will show you that. And in each one of these steps could be such that you're billing the customer, or you're expensing it, or you're billing a different customer, the manufacturer. Work orders are generated, as we saw earlier, from the calculate quantity to produce screen, or from the work order entry program. You could just generate the work order right from the program. We create manufacturing transaction, a manufacturing transaction for in the step in the routing. So that's the work order. That's step 10. We load the component and the labor from the kit specification into the manufacturing transaction. Basically, each manufacturing transaction has a status. You can allocate inventory. What happens there, we create an issue transaction that is on hold to make sure that every component is kept for this work order. Nobody else in Acumatica can steal it, and we create an issue transaction for the finished good that is going to be coming in, get produced, so you know that that inventory is also being produced. Then what happens when you completely close that transaction, we put it in the bin location that is not available to any availability until you close the step in the manufacturing process that says create the kit assembly. Then we'll load all the items into kit assembly and let Acumatica create the finished good and consume the items. As I mentioned, you can print barcoded pick tickets and scan the components. Use scan start and end type, release the transaction if you want to do that using handheld devices. Outside processing is supported. Here we have a routing that is set up as an outside processing. Notice that we create the transfer sales order. We create the PO. When the PO is received, we automatically bring the product back, create the transfer to the transaction to bring the product back from the vendor side. So in the routing step, you tell it that it's an outside process, who the vendor is, and the vendor, you set up the logical warehouse to virtual warehouse to transfer the product. Work orders, basically, for each work order, we show the planned and actual labor material consumed, so you can see variances for each work order transaction. Kit assembly. Here, basically, in the kit assembly, we let the kit assembly consume the product. I mentioned the very last step in the routing, or the step that is flagged as create kit assembly, would load all the components and labor into the kit assembly transaction of Acumatica, but at all times shows you what work order number it was used for, and on and on. And so that's when the VIP postings will be also get reversed, because as you complete each step, we post to VIP, and we reverse it when you do the kit assembly. The same thing with projects. We post to the project, and when you do the kit assembly, we reverse all project postings and issue the finished good to the project. Here we're seeing how a work order can generate from the sales order for this item. So it's that Christmas decoration, if you want to create it specific to a customer, they're made to order, will ask you questions. What color light do you want, the 110 or 220, and so forth, for electricity, and load the proper components. We also let you do auto scheduling. So we look at the work centers if they have capacity and give you an available to promise date. Uh, Depending on your routing, you also can set up the routing so labor and material entering that step in the process gets loaded into the sales order and billed to the customer. So if you have optional work orders that you're billing the customer for labor and material, it just loads them into the sales order. You can bill them. QC, as I mentioned, QCs can be set up for each routing step. So we're looking at the routing again, and that routing has 2 steps. And you could set up so the recalls approval would not let you close that routing step until you do this QC functions. QC functions also for the component and the kit assembly. You could set up, so if you want to use a component for the manufacturing, you need to do the QC, or the finished good needs to go to a QC. So we're seeing the manufacturing transaction with the QC scan, overhead allocation. So if you're doing work orders, if you're using our AcuWorkOrder for repair functions, we would show you for each equipment what type of equipment it is, and we'll show you for each customer or your own equipment, how many work orders you've issued to do work or scheduled services. Scheduled services could be set up by item, where you're doing a scheduled service annually, or so many units used, or every 90 days, and we'll create the work orders to do those. Um, we let you create work orders from the sales order. So if this, in this example, that item is coming back and we're using the RR type transaction where the product would come back, would get received, we will create a work order right from here for that product that is getting repaired. And basically, system will let you select the serial number that you created the work order, or maybe they're sending 2 of the unit back. And then you will decide the routing steps that is it billable to the manufacturer, customer, and expense. And you select from here, from the sales order, enter the routing steps that need to be used as part of that. Also, from this equipment screen, you can generate work orders if someone says that the equipment needs to be repaired, whether it's a scheduled service work order or just a repair work order. Posting to project, as I've mentioned, we post to the project for duration of the work order, and we reverse our posting to the project and issue the finished good to the project when completed. Uh, Equipment ROI, when you're posting expense or revenue for that equipment to the equipment record, you can set up the expense code, and that's maintained in the system. Here you're seeing some more information about the equipment. Profitability tracking. So if it's your inside machinery that you're using or your truck that you're using, you can see how much money you're spending for tires, for brakes, for engine repair, and things of that sort. This is an example for our process manufacturing. So we're manufacturing purple color paint, and we're saying for purple colored, paint, we're going to put it in 1 liter, 2 liter, and 5 liter size jars, and the system will let us do that. And as we finish the production, it would tell it how many you put into the first 5 liters and each one of these items. So the kit specification itself, the purple color has the color white, green, orange that go into it. Then each one of the finished good that is going to be manufactured has its own component, the lead, can, label, and we create kit assembly transactions at the end for each one of those. But notice when you're creating the work order for the purple color, it's asking you how many you're going to put in each size can. And as you decide those, it knows how to allocate the purple paint to the kit assembly transactions that are generated. So this is the manufacturing transaction to bring the orange or white. The first step in the manufacturing process is creating the ingredients. Then it's going to allocate the created ingredients to the manufacturing transaction. Here you see for each size can, the colors and the can specific components loaded. You could also, on the Acumatica's mobile app, close the work order manufacturing transaction, do things. Some folks use it for deliveries and things of that sort. So quickly, now we're going to start looking at the programs. So the first program is a dashboard that we're going to look at today. So these are each one of your work center one, assembly one, they're assigned colors, and you see that for the next so many days, what's the utilization, last 12 months, what's the utilization of each one of the work centers. We have our employee and a schedule board. So in here, we're seeing each one of these employees. Joseph is working on which work order, which transaction. If it switches that, you can just move it here. You can create different profiles if you have different employees for different plants and so forth. And for each profile created, you enter the filtering that, and it needs to be part of that. So it's expired. We also have scheduling board that is for the work order. So let's bring that up also. We just looked at the employee scheduling board that had. So here you have the same thing. Each one of the cells is a step in the manufacturing process. If it's going to take longer, you can do that. If you want to change the status of it, you could change the status of it to pending, and the color would change to that. And you can, as I mentioned, you could do this and this the same way. If you have different work centers in different plants, different locations, you could set those up. So it would basically work. This is the calculated quantity produced. So if I want to see my desks and what's the components that it's used for it, as many level dip, I can do that and create the PO or the work order. I can look at my Christmas decoration and look at the components used. You can notice that I can do the show item with zero quantity, because it calculates the demand and it shows you the demand calculated for it. So you could see that and be able to generate your transactions right from here. So if you want to buy that item, you could just click on it and see who the primary vendor. If it doesn't have it, select one, and have it create a purchase order for you right from here for the quantity. So you could say calculated demand is 0, but I want to buy 24 of it. Sorry about that. And generate PO. Same thing with generating work orders. It's very easy to do transfer sales orders or POs or work orders right from here. Notice that you have a what if quantity, and the what if quantity can be loaded from an Excel, or we have a forecasting screen that you can forecast by customer what they think they need, and it will load it in here as a what if. And you can do your planning to see if you have enough components based on the what if, or what if added to the calculated demand. You can load things and save them as filters. So if you have situations that you do the replenishment for batteries on the 10th of the month, and the tires on the 15th, and so forth, you could do some of those things. Going to the work orders, we're going to create a work order transaction here quickly. So deck 2500 is the item they want to manufacture. If I save it, and I can say click generate manufacturing transaction, and what it's going to do is going to ask me some of the questions that I have. Battery, light, power 110, 220. Do I want to have an option for light operated? And it would go ahead and create manufacturing transactions. It will show me the manufacturing transactions that it's created. If I click on one of them, it will open it up. So we're going to go to the kit specification record and see that here. So let's go look at that kit specification. So here's the kit specification for the desk. And we're basically saying we need a drawer, we need railings, we need a top assembly at these quantities. We grouped items into together, the prep group, outside process, filling, and they're linked to the routing. And if I click on the routing, I will see that this routing has these 3 steps, and each one of the steps, what's the duration and so forth. So if I go to the next item, deck 2500, and select its revision, I would see the components and the groupings assigned and the 3 assembly routing with its steps and its durations. As I mentioned, the components are grouped together using group ID code. Group ID codes are linked to the routing step. So that gives you the ability to issue all components in the very first step, very last step. Some of the other things, that's the step that we're going to create the kit assembly. If any one of the routing steps has labor and material that you want to bill and issue to the sales order, billed from the sales order, you check that box. If it's an outside process, you would check the box for outside processing, and on, and the vendor and the grouping and so forth. So that's how easy it is to set these things up and process the stock item, non-stock items that are set up as part of the work order. So going back to our work order, if any one of these steps you could click on. And there's 2 steps, as I mentioned in the work order. One is you remove it off of hold and you allocate. When you allocate component, any component entered, we will create an issue transaction and put it on hold. And when you release it, we'll move those components to this warehouse location that is set up to not show on availability. So if I just was to go through this and notice that we have labor, if there were non-stock items, they're all set up here. You can load components from an Excel. We have an ability to set up a routing as a custom and set up a series of routing steps. And as you're creating the work order, select which operation steps you wanted to load. So that's basically allocating that inventory, and then release basically moves it. And so I'm just basically going to, and as you complete all the steps for this work order, all the steps that got created, then it would create the kit assembly transaction. As far as sales order, here we're looking at an RR sales order. So when you have an item, so you could basically have a repair. We're going to do the repair, then we're going to come back and do an item that we're just manufacturing. So we're doing a repair, and we're basically saying quantity 1 of this item. The customer is sending back to us. Now you could just create the repair work order in the system, or you could create it from the sales order module where you're receiving the product, they're receiving the product in. Then from there, you're going to do the work order for repair after you inspect it and see what needs to be done. And then from there, create the shipping document and send it out. So I'm going to create the receipt. And basically line detail, I'm going to tell it where I've, which serial number I got, and you can have just fake serial numbers assigned to the customer. So I can say this is receiving, repair receiving, and it's, I'm going to call it ABC product 9 or 2, whatever. And then I'll be receiving this in and confirm the shipment, doing the update IN. And if I go back to the sales order, the scenario here is that I received the product in, I've inspected it, now I'm going to generate the repair work order for it. And depending on the repair transaction, I'm going to select that serial number that I'm repairing it. If they've sent me 2-3 items and I need to enter a different routing for each one of them. So I'm going to say, is it billable to the manufacturer? Is it billable to customer? Or maybe there's both. So some items that are billable to manufacturer will get loaded in that, some in here. So basically we'll be able to process the transaction. So what the system is going to do in the header of the manufacturing transaction, we have the customer number that for the, could be loaded from the customer record or from the manually as for the a number that represents the basically the manufacturer, and we will basically, so any labor and material I enter in here, I could just basically build the customer. I change the customer number here to the manufacturer number that I plan to use for that. So very flexible as far as what we're able to do with it, and process repairs, build the customer for repair. And the nice thing about it is all of it rolls up to our equipment records. So if you're doing repair work for your own plant equipment, or you're doing repair work for your customer, you can always tell the customer what work orders you've generated for their work, what equipment, how much it's costing them. Because remember, every time you're doing a repair transaction, you can enter the equipment number that you're creating the work order for, and a cost code. So are you working on the brakes? Are you working on the tires and all of that? And everything rolls up here, so you can see the information here and take the proper actions. And it will show you whether the customer's equipment or yours, or month by month, show all the expenses that you've incurred for it. Another sales order I want to enter, this sales order, I want to just create a regular sales order, and it's a made to order part, and we're going to create a sales order for a made to order part. So we just that Christmas decoration that we've been talking about. Somebody wants one of it. I can click on generate work order, save it, and then as I generate the work order, system would ask me to do questions, how many I want to build, and I can tell it whether I want to do the scheduling or not by selecting that, and whether I'm going to do backward scheduling or forward, answer the questions that I want, whether they're light and power and all of that, and the system will go ahead and generate the work order for manufacturing that the candy cane collection for us. And that's the work order created that I can click on and go view and do what I need to do to it. And from here, it just gets scheduled. Of course, as we talked about, everything gets scheduled and gets loaded on our scheduling board. So you could do whether it's employee scheduling board or for the company, this scheduling board. Now, if your durations are set up properly, these steps are auto scheduled one after the other. So you could work on them, and you could even enter what's the primary work center. If that work center doesn't have capacity, whether you should use a backup work center for it. As I mentioned, work orders also have repair type work orders, and when you use a repair type work order, you can do a partial disassembly or a full disassembly. We will create the transaction and bring the product back in stock. So all in all, very powerful enhancement. It's easy to implement though, because most of the what we talked about here today are things that could get turned on and turned off. So if you do not want to use any part of it, whether it's engineering change notices, whether it's outside processing, whether it's the whether it's overhead allocation, uh, all of them are, things that you may or may not use. Track and trace if you're doing food processing and you want to see this. Schedule work schedules could be set up for each day for each machine code so the system knows how to do auto allocation. But again, auto allocation is something that you may choose to use or just manually drag and drop to the work centers that are set up to process the item. So this is a very, very quick overview as I hope we show you the power of AcuWorkOrder, how easily you can process different type of transactions in it. You're always welcome to reach out to us, and we would gladly show you the transactions that are in the system. I can bring up the work order 27 and just show you the outside processing and how some of the information is also kept there. So this is an outside processing work center. So if I click on it, you would see that the system has created the outside processing transactions for it, the sales order, transfer sales order, and purchase order based on the routing step. And if you click on the sales order, you'll see a transfer order transferring the product to the warehouse linked to the vendor. So these products would go and come back, and you basically be costed. The cost of the purchase order when entered after you receive it, it gets loaded into the work order. So the outside processing cost, the actual outside processing cost, is added to the cost of your work order as well. So, Reza, this is what I was going to cover today. Hope that gives a good understanding of what our work order processing does. And as we discussed, we're gladly available to talk to you about your specific needs.
Thank you, Alec.